Hi crafty friends, this is card number 19 in Full Deck Challenge 3. The prompt for this card was paper weaving, which we will get to. First, my stamps. I have a couple of postage stamps, which are my constant for this challenge. And my carryover item from last week's card will be a clothing tag. I have this black one. Let's see how we're going to use that. For my paper weaving, I'm going to use magazine paper. I find that the easiest to use as it is nice and soft. So I've gone through my magazines and picked a few colors that are inspiring me. I've got some grays and beiges. I've got quite a bit that's got text on it. I also have a pink for a nice contrast. I love this one that has a bit of an ombre. I'm not quite sure if the ombre will actually show through when I do the weaving, but I like the colors. I'm going to start by tearing my strips for my weaving. I'm just using a ruler to tear some strips. They're roughly 1 centimeter wide. They can be as wide or as thin as you want. I always tear more strips than what I need, so it gives me a choice when I'm actually doing the paper weaving. And you don't have to use a lot of different colors. You can use the same color. The weaving will still show. And they don't have to be exactly the same size. You can measure if you want. I just like to eyeball, and I'm tearing where I think it's roughly the same size. You don't have to use magazines. You can use craft paper, you can use scrapbook paper, you can use printables, you can use anything you have. Like I said earlier though, I do like magazine because I do find it much easier to work with for weaving, especially if you're starting out. So weaving can feel quite complicated to start off with, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty easy to do. I start with one strip vertically from top to bottom, and then I put my other strips across from left to right, alternating how they cross that original first piece. The first will be on top, then underneath, then on top, then underneath. To add some interest, I'm going to punch some holes in some of my strips. I'm going to use 2 different sizes of punch. I've got a bigger one, which is like a regular size, and I have a smaller one. I'm just going to punch random holes here and there before I put them in the weave. This is a great project also to use up scraps. If you have little bits lying around, you can make beautiful paper weaving, and you can make it in big sections, and then you can use it in different projects. So you can tear it up and use sections. It doesn't have to always be the entire paper weaving that you've done to be used in one project. You can tear it up. So you can create a whole lot and have it ready for your projects. So I was putting the colored strips down just to see in which order they looked best. I'm going to just check that I have enough to actually cover the card. And now that my first little section is done, I am going to apply a little bit of glue. I'm just using glue stick just to keep these sort of together, so it's easier to manage the rest of the strips as we start weaving downwards. So just a dot of glue to keep these in place. The prompt for next week is paper doll. And just a reminder, we're not looking for perfection. It is okay if all the strips are not aligned and there are gaps in between. It really doesn't matter. It's meant to be like a mixed media. It's meant to be quite organic, I think. If you do want it a bit more perfect and you like those straight lines, of course you can measure everything and align it perfectly. But I'm quite a rough and ready girl, so I will just do it like this. So now that our base is done, we're going to start putting in our vertical pieces. And here I'm going to add maybe do as I say, not as I do, because I have made a little bit of a oopsie with mine. That gray strip is not correct. It should be over the pink at the top, but it doesn't matter. It still looks like paper weaving, and I'm not going to stress about it. I'm just going to continue on. Like I said before, I don't look for perfection. It's still giving a beautiful effect. And it's never too late to join in the challenge. You can join on any deck, on any card, and I'll put a link to the playlists in the description box below. It can be a little frustrating when you're first starting out with paper weaving, trying to get the strips sort of to alternate correctly. But the more you do, the easier it gets, especially if you do them often. For example, if you're going to do a whole lot of paper weaving, if you do it all in the same day or in a few days in a row, it becomes much easier. You can also join my Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, you can just search Full Deck Challenge Group. So I don't need a very big piece of paper weaving. I'm going to only need some for my card, and I'm not going to use it on the entire card. So I have plenty for now. So placing it to the one side of the card, leaving the top left corner open, I'm going to attach it with Mod Podge. I want it to stick really well. So I'm going to put a layer of Mod Podge directly onto my card and then place the weaving over the top. Once it's in place, I am going to tear off the excess and make those edges a little bit rough and irregular. And then I'm also going to put a layer of Mod Podge over the entire weave. The section of weaving that is right off the page on the right that is really long, I'm going to trim that with a scissors once everything is nice and dry. Now to soften the edges, I'm going to add some gesso. I'm going to put it onto the left and top sections. That'll sort of blend the weaving into the background of the card. So for today's card, for me, my mini collage is going to be the paper weaving that I've attached. So you can see the weaving is not the main part of my card. It is just the background. It's only a certain section showing. You can have more or less. You can also make it your main feature. It really is personal preference. To pick up a little bit more of that black from that black section of my paper strip, I'm adding a small amount of black splatter on the top left just to create balance there. Now going in with my black tag, which is my carryover item from last week, and my stamps. Let's see how we're going to work these. So the tag is really big, so obviously I can't use the entire one, otherwise it'll take up the entire card. So I've torn it very roughly and I've got the top section which has that thread, and to allow it to still see the weaving background, I'm going to put it in the bottom right section of my card. Using a clear craft glue, I'm going to stick it down and I'm going to leave the bottom hanging off. I'm not going to align everything. I do like elements sort of sticking off my projects or coming off my pages in my journals. I do like that extended element. I love the thread of this tag and it has a little button on it. So I'm going to stick that down as part of the overall look. And I love that curvy effect it has going up to the top of the card. My postage stamp will simply go on top of the tag on the bottom right. I think the tag is quite bold and I don't want to overdo the card. I tried adding the other half of the tag on the top left to create balance, but then I felt it was too much and too heavy overall, so I'm going to leave it like this. Let me show you a close-up of my card and you can see the beautiful paper weaving in the background. It's subtle, but it's there and I love the way it looks. I really hope you enjoyed this card in Full Deck Challenge 3 and were inspired to create your own and maybe even join in my challenge. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Thanks again for watching. Happy creating and I'll see you again soon. Bye.